सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे परम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Okay, so we are on topic number 46, and I will just read it out and you can repeat it after me. Tadanim eitau Ishvara prajño Chaitanya pradiptabhihi Ati sukshmabhihi Ajnana vrittibhihi Anandam anubhavataha Anandabhuk chetho mukha prajñaha Iti shrutehe Sukham aham asvapsam Nakinchit vedishamiti Uttitasya paramarshopapateschcha Okay. So, in the last class we talked about the Vyashti Ajnanam as being the last sthanam and all that. Now here, we also said that Karna Shariram, in Karna Shariram, the consciousness is called what?
Prajna.
Prajna. Okay. So this Prajna, we said it had two pieces of knowledge. What was that? It is Prayena Agya because it is almost totally ignorant, but not totally. So it had two pieces of information. Two pieces of knowledge are present. What are those two pieces?
The knowledge of
Ananda Vishaya Prakasha.
Yeah. So Ajnana Vishaya, Ananda Vishaya. Ajnana Vishaya means that I did not know anything. And Ananda Vishaya, I know that I was having no problems. I know that I was happy. So these two pieces of knowledge are present. Now the question is, so this is the answer to the question, does Prajna have any knowledge during Sushupti? And when we say Prajna, you should immediately understand that Prajna is the Karna Shariram, the causal body with reflected consciousness. So that is the RC with the RM as the causal body, that is Prajna. And now we are saying this Prajna is got two pieces of knowledge. If somebody knows something, then that person in Sanskrit is called the Pramata, the knower. So since we are saying that Prajna has these two pieces of knowledge, we are saying that Prajna is a knower, it's a Pramata. And once you say that Prajna is Pramata, then there is a question. What should be that question? For a thinking student, the moment you say somebody is a Pramata, there should be a question.
There should be a Pramanam and a Pramayam.
What is the instrument of that knowledge, the Pramana?
What is the instrument? Yeah.
So the point is, normally what is the instrument for any knowledge? Where does any knowledge take place normally?
In the mind.
In the mind. Now what is the question going to be?
If the mind is
But
dissolved,
in
how-
Sushupti Avastha, mind is at rest.
In Sushupti Avastha, mind is not available because it has been resolved. And therefore, the question is, then how does Prajna know? Because any knowledge takes place in the mind only. And that is why for the person as a waker in Jagrata Avastha and the person as a dreamer in Swapna Avastha, he can be Pramata because mind is available for the waker and the dreamer. So what is the argument? In Sushupti Avastha, mind is not available for any knowledge, for Prajna, because mind is not available, so no knowledge can take place in the mind. But you are saying Prajna is Pramata. So two statements. And mind is not available. So if mind is not available, then you have to ask, what is available in Sushupti Avastha? What are the only two things available? Only two things are available. One is pure consciousness and one is the causal body, Karana Shariram. The components of Sushupti Avastha are only these two, pure consciousness and Karana Shariram. Now we know pure consciousness, Atma, is Akarta, Abhokta, cannot be a Pramata also, right? And therefore, pure consciousness cannot know anything. And therefore, the other thing which is available must be the instrument of knowledge. Do you get the argument? The argument is that mind is not available for Prajna in Sushupti Avastha, but Prajna is Pramata. And therefore, there must be some knowledge, some instrument of knowledge available apart from the mind. When you analyze Sushupti Avastha and you see there are only two things available, one is pure consciousness and one is Karana Shariram. Pure consciousness cannot know anything. Therefore, whatever else is available, that must be the instrument of knowledge. Do you follow the argument? What else is available? Karana Shariram is available. And therefore, Karana Shariram must be the available instrument of knowledge in Sushupti Avastha. Okay. And through this Karana Shariram, there are only two things that are known. We already said that Prajna has only two pieces of knowledge, Ajnanam and Anandaha, ignorance and bliss. These two are the only two things known to Prajna, and this knowledge has therefore to take place in the Karana Shariram because nothing else is available. Remember, we are looking at Tattvabodha. Tattvabodha doesn't talk about any of these things. Tattvabodha says that in Karana Shariram there is ignorance and there is Ananda. Do you remember where it says? Or do you remember if it says so? Does Tattvabodha talk about what is available in Karana Shariram? It does. It says ignorance and Ananda is available. But it doesn't say all these things. How is this analysis going to be done? So therefore, how does Prajna know about these two things through Karana Shariram? Now we have established one thing. Prajna knows two things. Mind is not available to Prajna. Only two things are there in Prajna. What is that? Consciousness and Karana Shariram. Consciousness cannot know anything. Therefore, the only instrument knowledge available is Karana Shariram. Now the question is, how does Prajna know these two pieces of information through Karana Shariram? And to answer that, you have to ask a normal question in the waking state. How do I know of anything at all? How do I know about a glass? The answer is that there is a glass thought which takes place in my mind. Right? So a glass akara vritti. The thought in the form of a glass takes place in my mind, and that's how I know the glass. Or a table akara vritti. There is a table thought in my mind in the form of a table, and that is what I know as the table. Also remember that even though we have multiple thoughts, we say mind is full of thoughts. If you analyze, you will see that at any one point of time, there can be only one thought in the mind. A vritti, a thought, is unique, is time specific. You cannot have two vrittis in one time. At one instant, you cannot have two thoughts. Only one vritti can be present at one time. And therefore, this author says here that Sadananda says, Karma Shariram registers these two thoughts, Ajnana Vritti and Ananda Vritti. Okay, sir. Ajnana Vritti is ignorance thought. I don't know anything. It's a thought. And Ananda Vritti, I am happy, that thought. How does it register? That registering of that thought is called a Karana Sharira Vritti. The thought available in Karana Shariram. So Karana Shariram serves as the medium where thoughts are available. Just like the mind serves in Jagrata Avastha. And what are those thoughts? The author says, Sukham, Aham, Aswapsam. I was happy. That is the first thought. What is the second thought? Na kinchit avedisham iti. Na kinchit avedisham iti. I do not know anything at all apart from this thought that I was happy. But two thoughts are there. I was happy. I don't know anything else. Now, the point is, these Karna Shariram Vrittis, they are extremely subtle thoughts. And because they are so subtle, during Sushupti Avastha, even though that thought gets registered in the Karma Shariram, that's very important. During Sushupti Avastha, these two thoughts, they get registered in the Karma Shariram, but I am not able to recognize them during the Avastha. In spite of the registration of the thoughts in the Karma Shariram during Sushupti Avastha, I do not recognize those thoughts. So he says, Tadanim. During the Sushupti Avastha, Etau Easwara Prajnyo. Okay, he is clubbing both. Easwara is what? Here. Etau, these two, which are what? Easwara and Prajna.
Anand is Ishwar.
No. Easwara and Prajna refer to reflected consciousness.
Consciousness, okay.
So Prajna is what? Chaitanyam reflected in the Vyashti Karma Shariram. In the individual Karma Shariram, that reflected consciousness is called Prajna. And Ishvara, remember, is a term used in Shastram for Antaryami. Antaryami is also called Ishvara. So Antaryami means what? Consciousness reflected in the Samashti, in the macro Karma Shariram. And therefore he says, Etau Ishvara Prajnyo, this Samashti and Vyashti consciousnesses, Anandam Anubhavataha, they experience Anandaha. How? Ajnana Vrittidihi. Ajnanam is another name for Karana Shariram. So Ajnana Vrittidihi means that thought, that very subtle thought in the Karana Shariram. That is the cause for experiencing Ananda for both. Not only for Ishvara, not only for Antaryami, but for Prajna also. Now remember, the other thought is also, the other vritti is also there. This particular statement is Ananda only, but we have to supply, they also experience the absence of any knowledge. Ajnanam is also experienced. That the author doesn't say, he takes it for granted that we as advanced students will automatically connect. Because he has said earlier on that two thoughts are available. He is telling us how that thought is available. Anandam Anubhavataha, they experience Ananda, they have the thought, I am experiencing Ananda, Ajnana Vrittibihi, because of that subtle thought in the Karma Sharira. And what kind of thought is it? He says, Ati Sukshma Bhi. This Sushupti Vritti is Ati Sukshmam. Okay. What is Ati Sukshmam? Sukshma Sharira Vritti. Subtle body thought, which is what? Thought in the mind. Okay. Is Sukshmam. Sukshmam means subtle. So when you say Sukshma Vritti, if in Shastram when you say Sukshma Vritti, you are referring to the normal thought in the mind. Because the mind is subtle body, Sukshma Shariram. And when you say Karana Sharira Vritti, you are referring, Karana Shariram is more subtle or less subtle than, or more gross or less gross than subtle body. Karana Shariram is third one, so it is more subtle. And therefore, Ati Sukshma, more subtle. So, Karana Sharira Vritti is called Ati Sukshma Vritti. Whenever you hear the term Sukshma Vritti, remember it refers to the mind. And when you hear the term Ati Sukshma Vritti, it refers to these two thoughts in the Karana Sharira. So that is why when I have emotions in the mind, I am saying they are Sukshma Vritti. Why? Because they are in the Sukshma Sharira. And because they are subtle, my emotion, why is it called subtle? Because it is known only to me. My emotions, unless I display them through my face or my behavior, or etc., are known only to me. If I am angry, if I am irritated, that I am aware of that first. The external expression of that anger may be different. But if I am controlled enough not to show externally, nobody else can know. Hence, the vritti thought is called Sukshma Vritti. And because of Sukshma Vritti, I am able to know that thought at the same time that the thought is generated. That is in Jagrata Avastha or in Swapna Avastha. But Karana Shariram Vritti is Ati Sukshma Vritti, and because it is more subtle and the mind is not available, the Karana Shariram, though it registers that thought, it is not capable of revealing that thought to me. That thought is revealed to me only when I wake up. So this is Arthapatti Pramana. Okay, not Pratyaksha Pramana. So what is the proof that these two vrittis are registered? So he gives two proofs. Because I am not aware of the registration of the vritti in the Karana Shariram, as and when the vritti takes place. So he has to quote, right? He has to give two pramanams. So he gives Shruti Pramanam, that is from the Upanishads, and he gives Arthapatti Pramanam. So we'll come to that. First he gives Shruti Pramanam. Anandabhuk Prajnaha iti Shrutehe. This is from Mandukya Upanishad. Mandukya, not Mundaka, which says that Prajna experiences Ananda in Sushupti Avastha. So that is Shruti Pramanam, saying that Prajna experiences Ananda in Sushupti Avastha. Therefore, the Ananda Vritti has to be taking place in the only available instrument of knowledge, which is Karana Shariram. Then he says, Uttithasya, after waking up, I am able to recollect that I was happy, that I had no knowledge. So this is the presumption that since I am able to recollect, therefore I must have had that experience. And what experience? Sukham aham asvapsam. I was happy. Na kinchid avedisham iti. I did not know anything else. So these two thoughts I am able to recollect, and therefore there is a presumption that these thoughts were registered in the Karma Sharira. So this is called Arthapatti Pramana, based on presumption only. There is no Pratyaksha Pramana available over here. And therefore he says, Paramashaha Upapattehe. So Paramashaha means a reference to this past experience is logically possible. Upapattehe, when I have woken up. Because this is what he's saying, that there are two proofs that can be given. One is Shruti Pramanam. Shruti Pramanam is proof for us. We don't question it. So Shruti says, Prajna experiences Ananda and Sushupti, and we take it for granted. And one is Arthapatti Pramanam. Because I am able to recollect that I was happy, that I was not disturbed, Therefore, that thought must have been registered in my karma shariram when I was in sushupti avastha. And this is logically possible. And that's why he says this reference is made by the waker. Uthitasya, that person who has woken up. And both these vrittis are revealed by what? Chaitanya pradipta bihi. Both the vrittis are illumined, are revealed to me by that Chaitanyam alone, by the consciousness principle alone. We should not forget that all the three bodies are inert, which includes Karna Shariram. And therefore, if Karna Shariram has to experience something, then Chaitanyam, consciousness, has to be present. In that, otherwise, there is no question of experiencing anything. An inert body cannot experience anything. A very interesting discussion. Okay, any questions? It's a very important piece for you.
Sir, the mind is completely resolved in Sushupti Avastha. So, when in Jagrad Avastha, how does it recollect?
Because Karma Shariram Vritti is there. All that is needed is that there should be instrument where the thought is recorded. Normally, it is recorded in the Sukshma Shariram, but that is not available during Sushupti Avastha. So it is recorded in Karna Shariram. And in Jagrad Avastha, Karna Shariram is there or not? I hope you don't have a doubt about that. It is there. And therefore, the mind can recall.
And sir, you said the vritti is unique and time specific, and only one vritti can be present in the mind at one time.
Correct.
So, but in the Karan Sharira vritti, there are these two, the Ajnana vritti and
the first one is that I was happy, right? That was registered. Then the next one is registered. That I don't know anything.
They are registered in a sequence.
Sequentially, of course.
Okay.
It's not that at one instant they get registered, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Acharya.
Yes, John.
We mentioned that there are two types of vritti, the sukshma vritti in the mind and in the subtle body, and the ati sukshma vritti.
Yeah.
I was wondering what does the prefix ati mean?
Ati means very, extremely.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
Ati sukshma means extremely subtle.
Acharya?
Yes.
I think I have one basic confusion. Because RM and RC are so closely interlinked.
Yes.
How are we saying RC is the pramata?
RC is always the pramata. RM is inert.
Right.
Otherwise, a dead body would be annoying things, no?
Correct. Yeah.
So RC is pramata means RC. Chidabhasa in Sanskrit. Chidabhasa means reflected consciousness. Chit abhasa. As if consciousness.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we look at the 47th one, smaller one. Anyoho samashthiveshtyoho.
Anyo samashtiveshto
Vanavrikshoriva. Jalashaya jalayoriva.
Jalashaya jalayora.
Va abhedaha. Okay. So you have to remember now that so far in this Vakya Vritti, Sadananda has not introduced Srishti. Creation has not yet come. Right? Because creation has not yet come, whatever we have discussed so far, they must be things which are not created. Right? The physical body has not been discussed. Physical body is created. The universe has not been discussed. The universe is created. So whatever we have discussed so far, remember that they are all uncreated, or in Sanskrit, anadi, without beginning. What are the factors we have discussed so far? Brahman, Samashti Ajnanam, Vyashti Ajnanam, Prajna. Prajna is the consciousness associated with what? Vyashti. And Ishvara or Antaryami, consciousness associated with Samashti. All these five, they are Anadi. They have not been born as yet. Okay. And so he says, Anyoho Samashti Vyashtyoho Abhedaha. From the Samashti and the Vyashti points, they may be different points of view. But Abhedaha, that consciousness is the same entity. Right? That original consciousness which is reflected in the Samashti body and the Vyashti body, that is same. So Abhedaha, there is no difference at all. And he gives an example. Vanavrikshyoreva Jalashaya Jalayoreva Va. Like the forest and the trees, or the waves and the water, they are all Abhedaha finally. So Vyashti and Samashti consciousnesses. So here you are talking about the reflecting medium, which is what? Samashti Ajnanam and Vyashti Ajnanam. What do we mean when we say Samashti Ajnanam? Remember that the word Ajnanam in all these discussions, it refers to the Karana Shariram. Okay, so Samashti Ajnanam means Samashti Karana Shariram. Vyashti Ajnanam means Vyashti Karana Shariram. And therefore, from the both the Karana Shariram are reflecting media. So from the viewpoint of both the macro reflecting medium as well as the micro reflecting medium, there is no difference in the consciousness at all. That is what is being said. Okay. Now we look at topic number 48. We will read. Etad upahitayoho
Upahitayoho
Ishvara pragnayorapi
Ishvara-prajnayorapi
Vanavriksha
Avriksha
Avachinna Kashayoriva
Avachinna-kashayoriva
Jalashaya Jalagata
Ashaya-jalagata
Pratibimba Kashayoriva
Pratibimba-kashayoriva
Va Abhedaha
Va-vedaha
Esha Sarveshwaraha
Esha Sarveshwaraha
Esha Sarvayagnya Sarvagnya
Sarvayajna
Esha Sarvagnya
Esha Sarvajna
Esho Antaryami Esha Yonihi
Esho-antaryami Esha-yonihi
Sarvasya Prabhavapyayau
Sarvasya prabhavapyayau
Bhutanam Ityadi Shrutehe.
Bhutanam-ityadi-shrutehe.
So he has equated consciousness as one at the Samashti and the Vyashti level, at the RM level, at the RM viewpoint. Now he takes the RC viewpoint also. RM, from the RM point of view, there is no difference. From the RC, he says, Etad upahitayoho. Upahitayoho is dual case. So associated with etad, two upadis. It's not written specifically, but Sanskrit grammar it is. So upahitayoho is a dual case indicating two things. And therefore he says this Chaitanyam associated with these two upadis. Which are they? Vyashti Karana Shariram and Samashti Karana Shariram, also called Vyashti Ajnanam and Samashti Ajnanam, which have been given two names. What are they? Ishvara Prajnyo. Prajnaha. Ishvara is Samashti Ajnanam. Remember, Ishvara is not Samashti Karana Shariram. What is Ishvara?
is the reflected consciousness RM and OC of
Yeah.
the
So
samadhi.
you take it as the, if you can word it this way, consciousness associated with the samashti karma shariram is Ishvara. Consciousness associated with the Vashti karma shariram is Prajna. In other words, RC, and for both. RC with the macro karma shariram is Ishvara. RC with the micro karma shariram is Prajna. He says, Etad upahitayoho Ishvara Prajnyorapi, this Chaitanyam associated with these two Padis, which have been given the two names Ishvara Prajnaha, they are also Abhedaha. They are also having no difference. So he says there is no difference really between the two consciousnesses. The two RCs are also equal. So he says, here's an example. Vanavriksha avichinna akashayoriva. Like the space which is occupied by the trees and vana avichinna akashayoriva, and the space occupied by the forest, there is no difference at all. In the earlier on, what did he say? Between the trees and the forest, there is no difference. That was from the point of view of the reflecting medium. Now he is saying from the point of view of the space occupied by the tree and the forest. So here you have to connect the space to the consciousness. Therefore, the space occupied by the tree seems to be smaller than the space occupied by the forest. That is the what is being conveyed. But essentially, if you block out the tree and the forest, you will see that there are no differences of Vyashti Samashti in space. Space itself has no macro differences. The differences belong to the reflecting medium only, to the Upadhi only. He gives another example also. Jalashaya Jalagata Pratibimba Akashayoriva Vabhedaha. So Jalashaya Jalagata Pratibimba Akashayo. He says the space reflected in the wave, which is the micro medium, and the space reflected in the ocean, which is the macro medium, Samashti and Vashti, they appear to be different because one seems to be larger space, one seems to be smaller space. But essentially, there is Abhedaha. There is no difference at all. So from the viewpoint of the reflecting media, the waves and the ocean, they appear different. But really speaking, they are both are water. So they are not different at all. And for the trees and the forest, they appear different. But tree is a name given when taken individually. Forest is a name given when taken as a group. And therefore, Abhedaha, there is no difference at all. And he gives Shruti support. He says, Esha Sarveshwaraha, Esha Sarvajnaha, Esha Antaryami, Esha Yoni, Sarvasya Prabhavapyau hi Bhutana. This is again from Mandukya Upanishad. Ityadi Shrutehe. Esha Sarveshwaraha means this is the Lord of all. Esha Sarvajnaha means this Lord is omniscient. Esha Antaryami means this Lord is all pervading. It pervades both the individual karma shariram as well as the macro karma shariram. Esha Yonihi, this is the womb. This Ishvara is the womb. Sarvasya Prabhava, Prabhavaha. Sarvasya Prabhava, everybody is born. And Sarvasya Apyayaha, everybody dissolves or resolves. Hi Bhutanam, all the beings, they are born from this particular womb, which is called Ishvara, and they dissolve into that womb also. What is the idea? The idea is that Ishvara is reflected consciousness. Prajna is reflected consciousness. The differences belong to the reflecting medium alone. In the original consciousness, there is no difference at all. You should not think there is a difference in the original consciousness at all. There is no small, there is no big, there is no division, there is no micro, there is no macro. There is no Vyashti, there is no Samashti. It is simply OC. Okay. Now we go to topic number 49. Again, a continuation of this. So we will read. Vanavriksha Tadavichennakashayoho Jalashaya Jala
Jala Jala
Adgata Pratibimba Akashayoho
Shayayoho
Va Adharabhuta
Avahara
Anupahita Akashavat
Anupahita Akashavadat
Anyoho Ajnanatad Upahita Chaitanyoho
Ajnanatadupahita Chaitanyayoho
Adharabhutam
Adharaputam
Yad Anupahitam Chaitanyam
Yadupahitam Chaitanyam
Puryamityochyate
Puriyamyuchate
Shantam Shivam Advaitam
Shantam Shivam Advaitam
Chaturtham Manyante
Chaturthamanyam
Sa Atma Sa Vigneyaha
Sa Atma Sa Vigneyaha
Ityadi Shrutehe. Okay. So he says, now imagine, just to give brief background. Imagine that there is a mirror on the wall of your room. Okay. And there is, of course, there is light, right? This light, which can be sunlight or it can be tube light, whatever. There is light all around the mirror. Now, how many types of light are there? When you say there is light and there is a mirror, how many types of light can you think of?
Light is only of one type.
Anybody else? Okay, so there are two types of light in that room. One is the light by which the mirror is revealed. One is the light by which you see the mirror, right? And one is the light which is reflected in the mirror. You get it? That light can be classified into two. One is the light which is revealing the mirror to you, and one is the light which is reflected in the mirror. If the mirror breaks, which light goes away?
The reflected one.
What happens to the original light which shows you the mirror?
The original light nothing happens.
Remains. Similarly, if you talk of space, there are two types of spaces. The space which the mirror occupies and the space which you see in the mirror. When the mirror breaks, only the space which you see in the mirror goes away. The space which the mirror occupied, it remains there. How do you know? You put up another mirror in that space. In the place of the broken mirror, you put up another mirror. So that space is still there. What is the extraction from this to our subject? In Karma Shariram, both Prajna Chaitanyam, the reflected consciousness, and Brahma Chaitanyam, original consciousness, are present. When the RM dies, the reflected consciousness, Prajna, goes away, but the original consciousness, it continues to remain. And this is a reference basically to Mandukya Upanishad. So that Chaitanyam which does not go away, that Chaitanyam has got a specific name in Mandukya Upanishad, it is called Turyam. Turyam literally means the fourth one, right? So the fourth one, I mean, I won't go into the explanation of why it's called the fourth one. That we'll see when we come to Mandukya. But the Chaitanyam does not go away. Is called Turyam, and this Turyam is different from both Prajna and Ishvara. And in Mandukya, of course, Prajna and Ishvara are called Tritiya Pada, and Turyam is called Chaturtham, the fourth Pada. You will see that in this verse it is there, Chaturtham, fourth Pada. And he gives an example. Vanavriksha tad avichanna kashayoho, the space occupied by the tree and the forest, adhara bhutaha. For both these spaces, there is a adharam, there is a substratum, which is what? The original space. In that original space, when the tree occupies some space, you say this tree occupies a small space. When the forest occupies a space, you say that forest occupies big space. But the original space, he calls it here Anupahita Akashaha. That space which has no upadis, not associated with either a tree or a forest, that space is Turyam. That space is consciousness itself. And he gives an example again. Jalashaya jala tadgata pratibimba akashayoriva. Like the space reflected in the wave and the ocean, both are based, both have a substratum of the original space, which is Anaupahita Akasha, which is not reflected. There is no reflecting medium. It is the original pure space. There are no attributes to that space. It's only when the upadhi is associated with the space that we begin to get attributes of big and small. And he quotes Pandukya, Shantam Shivam Advaitam, Chaturtham Manyante. Chaturtham here refers to Turyam. Sa Atma Sa Vijnaya, you must realize that is the Atma. I'm not explaining in detail because Mandukya is a huge text. It will take a long time. It's like 12 verses, the whole Upanishad, 12 mantras. But the study takes a very long time. Now we look at the 50th topic. We will read Idam eva Turyam
Idam
eva Turyam
Shuddha Chaitanyam
Chaitanyam
Ajnanaditadupahita
Ajnanaditadupahita
Chaitanyabhyam Taptaya
Chaitanyabhyam Taptaya
Pindavat Aviviktam
Pindavat
Pindavat Aviviktam
Pindavat Aviviktam
Sat Mahavakyasya
Satmahavakyasya
Vachyam Viviktam
Vakyam Viviktam
Sallaksyamiti Chotyate.
Sallakyamiti Chotyate.
Okay. Now, here a point is being made that the reflecting medium and the reflected consciousness, the mirror and the reflection, they can never be separated. Okay. Now, don't say that when I look at my face in the mirror, there is an image of the mirror, but that can be separated from the mirror. Yes, that can be separated. Why? The image of your face in the mirror is not an appropriate example here. Why? Think about it. Because the statement here made by him is that the reflection, that is the RC and the RM, can never be separated. But in the case of your face in the mirror,
If I move, it
because
will
the
go-
mirror can be separated from the reflection, but not when the reflecting medium is the body.
No, that's
No,
only a
no.
statement. You have to give the exact reasoning, the logic. The logic
But
is
yes,
that between the face and the mirror, there is a distance, right? Between my face and the mirror, there is a distance. My face is not all pervading. While in the case of the sunlight, you cannot separate the mirror from sunlight, assuming there is daytime, right? So that logic of reflected face and original face should not be used here, because there is a distance between the reflected face and the original face. In fact, there is a distance between the original face and the mirror, which is why there is a distance between the reflected face and the original face. But in the case of OC, the OC is all pervading. All pervading means what? Everywhere. Everywhere means what? The RM can never be physically moved away from the OC. You understand? The difference between your face and the mirror and the OC and the mirror is that OC is all pervading. It is there everywhere. There is no way that you can move the mirror away from the OC. Your body cannot be moved away from the OC. And when the mirror cannot be moved away from the sunlight, you cannot separate the reflected sun and the mirror. As long as the mirror exists, necessarily the RC, the reflected sun, will be there in the mirror. It's an important point. I hope you understand. You have to think about it a bit.
Acharya ji, can you just explain it once again, because it's a little confusing?
So you try to put it in your words. That is the best way. What is your understanding?
So we are saying that there is a distance between yourself and the mirror.
That is the face example. I said it is not appropriate.
Okay.
You should not use that example. I am saying about the sun and the reflected sun. The reflected sun is there in the mirror all the time, simply because you cannot separate the mirror from the sunlight. A more appropriate example, of course, is the OC and the body, which is the RM. The OC is all pervading. The body is always in the OC. Therefore, the OC and the RM can never be physically separated. Therefore, the RC and the RM can never be physically separated. And this is one point which Vedanta makes. It is because of the fact that there is no physical separation possible of the RM and the RC that the entire confusion is arising. Who am I? Who am I confusion is simply because I can never really separate the RM from the RC. And to understand this, remember that RC, when you say, it has got three non-separatable components. What are they? The moment I use the word RC, Chidabhasa, immediately into your mind should come three non-separatable integrated components. What are they? OC, RM, RC. There is no RC without the RM. There is no RC without the OC. And therefore, every RC has three components. Therefore, wherever we use the word I, remember the I, when I say I, normally as a Ajnani, when I say I, my I consists of what all? The Atma, the Chidavasa, and the body mind sense complex. The Atma is OC, Chidavasa is RC, body mind complex is RM. Whenever the word I is used, all these three are there. And the confusion is because they are all mixed up. And therefore, in any Mahavakyam, Tat Tvamasi, for example, Tat also is a mixture of these three components. Tvam also is a mixture of these three components. And therefore, the author says, Idameva Turyam Shuddha Chaitanyam. This Idam Eva Shuddha Chaitanyam, this pure Chaitanyam without any attributes, which is the OC, is called Turyam. It's called Turyam. So Turyam is called OC. And is the OC present by itself? No. Ajnanadi tad upahita chaitanyabhyam, along with the other two, which is what? Ajnanadi means karna shariram, the RM. Tad upahita chaitanyam means the chaitanyam reflected in the karna shariram, which is RC. And therefore the OC turiam is present along with the RC and the RM. And he says, aviviktam sat. Viviktam means to separate. Aviviktam means not separate. So taken together, when these three RM, RC, OC, aviviktam sat, when they are taken together as one composite composite entity, and he gives an example. Tapta aya pindavat. Tapta means hot. Ayaha in Sanskrit means iron. Pinda means ball. So tapta aya pindavata, like a red hot iron ball. So he's saying when these three things, RM, RC, OC, are taken together, it can be compared to a red hot iron ball. In this red hot iron ball, what are the three things? What three things can you conceive of in a red hot iron ball?
The iron ball,
The iron
Ball.
ball, yes.
The heat,
the heat,
The glow, the heat, and
And the weight.
the fire,
Color.
the fire,
Color.
Fire.
right? And the fire. So therefore, remember, these are taken together, and therefore when somebody tells you don't touch the iron ball, it will burn you, a Vedantic student should segregate the three and say the iron ball cannot burn me because iron is cold. The fire cannot burn me because fire needs some reflecting medium to be expressed. And therefore the heat in the fire, in the heat in the iron ball, which is the fire expressing its heat as the red hotness, as the glow, that is what burns me. So it is the same composite entity which is located in the same locus. The iron ball, the fire principle has pervaded each atom of the iron ball. Similarly, when you say aham, me, it refers to the three entities RC, OC and RM. And he says vachyartham aham. This composite entity RC plus OC plus RM is the vachyartham. Vachyartham means primary meaning, the dictionary meaning of what? Mahavakyasya vachyam, of the word tvam in the Mahavakyam. Tattvamasi, Mahavakyam is referring to. Mahavakyasya vachyam means in the primary meaning. Vachyam means vakya artha, meaning of. So this composite entity is the primary meaning, the vachyartham of the word tvam. And he says, supposing you take that vachyartham and viviktam sat, you separate the RC and the RM from the three. From the aham, you take out the RC and the RM, which means you take out the body, mind, sense complex, which is the RM. When the RM goes away, the RC goes away. So RM and RC were removed. What is left? Only OC is left. And therefore OC is what is left after removing RC and RM. That is the lakshyam iti chochate, is the lakshyartham, the implied meaning of aham. Two very important concepts. The vachyartham, the primary meaning of the word tvam, is the combination RC plus RM plus OC. But the lakshyartham, the implied meaning of tvam, is what? Is OC alone. Because you are dropping the RC and the RM using a technique which is called in Vedanta, it is called Bhaga Tyaga Lakshana. Bhaga Tyaga Lakshana means one part is dropped. This is the, we have to apply this for Tat also, for Tvam also. When you apply this, you will find that the Vachyartham of Tvam is body, mind, sense complex plus the reflection plus OC. When you apply it to Tat Pada, that is Ishvara, again you will find that there is a body, mind, sense complex, Karma Shariram, plus the reflection, plus the OC. And when you use what this technique called Bhaga Tyaga Lakshana to drop what does not fit, then what remains is only OC. How do you use the technique? Because the Tattvamasi, what you call the Mahavakyam, can be put in a very simple equation. Tat is equal to Tvam, which means Ishvara is equal to Jiva. Tat being Ishvara and Tvam being Jiva. So you are saying Ishvara is equal to Jiva. On the face of it, it does not fit. Why it does not fit? Because if you break up Ishvara into its component parts, you will get macro body mind sense complex plus OC plus RC. And on Jiva side, you will get micro body mind sense complex plus RC plus OC. Obviously, the macro universe cannot be equated to the individual body. So use a technique called Bhaga Tyaga, dropping a part of it. One Bhag ka Tyag, dropping a part of it. What part do you drop? You drop the RMs. If you drop the RMs, the RCs go away. What is left on one side is OC. What is left on the other side is OC. That is the only way in which Tattvamasi can be equated, can form an equation. So with this, we'll stop for today. Any questions? Slowly, we are getting into more technical areas.
Acharya, I don't know if my question is right or wrong. I may be impractical out here, but if we are leaving RM and automatically RC going, practically, if I have to think of it, it's like you're leaving your body, and in the end, it's all about death.
You have not understood what that means.
Yeah, I think I didn't understand.
Yeah, because body is mithya or satyam.
I'm not getting it.
Body is mithya or satyam.
Mithya.
Body is mithya.
Yeah.
When you look at a bangle, will you be afraid to say that I don't want the bangle, but I want the gold?
No, you can't say that, right?
I think,
Indeed.
Lata, you need a bit more exposure. So just hang on.
Okay.
You have to just keep assimilating.
Okay.
Because if you have not understood the concept of satyam mithya, then we need to go back to that.
Okay, Acharya.
Have you what you call done second chapter?
Not yet.
With the second chapter, you're not done.
Second chapter, I'm still revising actually, Acharya, from the recording because I joined in between.
So you have to catch up fast because all these concepts are contained in the 16th verse. What is satyam and what is mithya? Because you not understood that is why this question has come up.
Okay.
See, these are all advanced texts. You need to come up to speed as quickly as possible.
Okay.
You need to do that.
Thank you, Acharya. And I'm sorry I asked the wrong question.
Not a problem. So, okay, with this, thank you for your patience. And there's some music begun outside, so I don't think we can talk much. You can hear the music coming in, right? So, Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamada Purnam Eva Vishishate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.